usually a little louder anyway. It's usually fine. Okay, we're live.
Are we?
We're here. We're live. We're on.
The countdown is a little slow today.
The countdown.
Hello, welcome. This is Live at Epiphan, episode 48.
48. Wow.
That's a big number. That's a big number.
That's more. We've survived longer than a lot of network television shows do. So
Yeah, exactly.
I guess we're doing it all right.
Yeah, so welcome back. Obviously, Live at Epiphan means it's Thursday, somewhere around 3 o'clock, something like that. I don't know. I'm losing track of days. All this Olympic coverage is messing with my head. But what do we have today, Dan?
So today, this is a requested topic, and it's a popular topic on our forum recently, and that is USB audio with your Webcaster X2. So we're going to look at the beta feature that exists on Webcaster X2 to use USB audio devices, and we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and this was definitely something that got asked about a lot at ISE a couple weeks ago in Amsterdam, which we are back from.
Yes,
so
you're back. We both survived.
Yeah.
Some minor issues with travel and baggage. It's not easy going overseas to
Not always,
with
no.
all of the equipment and everything.
Yeah, between shipping and flights and everything else, yeah, there's a lot of things to coordinate, and of course the staff and everything. But we survived for the most part.
Yeah, and everything went really well. So a big thank you, obviously, to everyone who came by the booth, all of our partners, all of our customers, and just the Epiphan team for pulling it all together. I mean, it really is a team effort, and everybody really chipped in and made it a wonderful show, really.
Yeah. And for all you guys who came to the booth and wanted selfies with Dan and I, we really
George
appreciate the fame. And so, you know, anybody who missed out on that opportunity will be at NAB in April.
NAB.
We're going to have a selfie section in the booth. No, I'm just...
A signing table.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun to meet all of you and to actually interact face to face. Of course, this is a live show, so if you want to chat with us now, I mean, we're here, and we're running low latency mode on YouTube, which means that we can respond to your comments and answer your questions faster than usual. We're already getting a question here from Peter, which we will answer momentarily. But first, there's a little bit of news.
Yes.
And what news are we releasing today?
Hopefully a few people saw an email that went out earlier this afternoon. I think Dan can pull it up here. We'll show it. Basically, we pushed out an update for the Webcaster X2. So anyone who owns a Webcaster X2, you should see a little notification if you look at the display. This one's coming from another Webcaster, saying update at the top. Click that, download, and then you will now have access to Twitch as another platform on your Webcaster X2. If you're not familiar with Twitch, as we discovered at ISE, especially in Europe, apparently not that many people care about Twitch in some places in the world, but it is a rapidly growing platform. We've talked about Twitch a lot. We've done an entire show about the potential growth of Twitch. And so we wanted to add that into the mix for Webcaster. And so this new update does that. There's a few other little things in there that leads into all these other bits and pieces we're talking about today as well. But the main one is adding Twitch to that. So we've sent that out as an email to all registered owners of Webcasters. So if you've registered your product with us, you should have gotten that email with some more details in there.
Yeah, there's a couple other minor little things as well. I mean, Lisa, can we go to laptop picture-in-picture for just a moment? So yeah, obviously Twitch being the big part of this release, but you see here there's some little minor tweaks to the keyboard commands with Webcaster X2, so you can start and stop your stream with the spacebar key. If you are using the USB webcam feature, the M key no longer starts and stops streaming. The M key will actually toggle your second camera on and off.
Yeah.
So those are all of those keyboard commands. There's actually a really great video on Epiphan U, and there's a link to it here, but you can find it on our Epiphan U playlist, and it's going to walk you through all the keyboard commands with Webcaster X2.
Yeah.
So if you want to learn more about that, you can find it on our YouTube channel.
I just went through some of that, doing a product demo for someone right before the show, and yeah, it's actually, you could do a lot if you hook up a keyboard. And we put up a blog post, I guess, earlier this week as well, talking about sort of 6 ways to supercharge your Webcaster, and some of it talked about using a small mini wireless keyboard to do all of that stuff, which has a touchpad built in. So
I think
really
it's a
helps
popular feature, and You know, I've talked to even Scott, if you're watching, you were talking about how you'd like to be able to start and stop your Webcaster from the stage without needing to walk over there and press the button. Well, if you have like a little mini keyboard, just hit the space bar.
And that one we recommended, it's like $15 on Amazon. It's like pretty much the cheapest little thing, but it's...
And you can use it for other things too, right?
But with Webcaster, it's incredibly useful. So, but that's not the one we're talking about today.
Yeah, that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about USB audio devices with Webcaster X2. So if you want to plug in some USB audio devices, that is possible. It's a beta feature. Maybe you can explain, George, a little bit about how this feature has been implemented and why it's a beta feature and some of the rationale there.
So many of you probably were already aware that we had a beta feature for USB camera support using the USB port on the input side of the Webcaster. Recent updates have added some menu items so that if you're not using a camera specifically, if you're just using a microphone, like we have this random selection here on the table, you can use audio from USB only instead of having to use embedded audio on the HDMI. It's a beta feature because we're still tweaking some of the support. For example, we played with this one a little earlier. There's some things there that we wouldn't recommend.
There's so many types of USB audio devices, whether it's sound cards, microphones.
Exactly, and so we're still testing a lot of these. That's why it's beta. There's hundreds, thousands of devices, and we can't possibly test them all. We're trying to test a good cross-section of popular devices to qualify them, debug them, maybe add some additional features that might be necessary, like maybe gain control or something along those lines, if necessary, before we say it's a real thing. It's usable. It works.
But your mileage may vary.
I mean, Gmail was in beta for a decade, right? So, I mean, things happen. But the general idea is results may vary if you're using a device that we have not ourselves tested. But that's another reason why we wanted to do this show is everything that we have on the table and off the table at the moment, we have tested in our labs, and we feel comfortable either telling you the pros and cons of them, if they work or not, and so on.
Yeah, so that's really the idea today, is to get the conversation started. If you've tested any USB audio devices already, I mean, certainly let us know in chat. Peter, let's get to his question before we get further in depth on this. He's saying, is there a way to add a switcher to the X2 to have feeds from a computer screen and a camera?
Yes.
So that's a topic we've actually covered a few different times.
Yeah, we was it a couple weeks ago you guys did that? I don't think I was on that show. But you made some recommendations with Marta, I believe. You were talking about that. Made some recommendations of some external inexpensive switchers that you could put in front of a Webcaster to do exactly that. So there are a number of options out there. They're going to range, in a couple $100 most of the time, depending on the number of inputs you need. But generally speaking, if you can use an HDMI switcher that will have a constant output, which means it doesn't cut in and out on those switches.
Yeah, so I've heard those type of switchers referred to as a seamless switcher or a switcher with a scaler.
Exactly.
Right?
If it's a scaler, it'll maintain the output. So
because if you use a switcher that is just a dumb,
it'll interrupt the signal.
The signal will cut, just like when you're switching inputs on your television, which is not what you want when you're live.
You might see a no signal picture in the middle of your stream, and you don't want that.
So Peter, if you want to learn about some of our recommendations there, you can check our previous Live at Epiphan episode called Webcaster X2 Accessories.
Yes.
And there's also a link on the Webcaster forum on epiphan.com where you can find all of the links and all of that information.
And speaking of the forum, there is a thread in our forums already talking about audio devices. So there's already a bunch of stuff in there. So definitely, check that out. Contribute, please. We'd love to hear, not just in chat, but also in the forums for people who maybe aren't watching this to see what it is. But let's, are there any other questions there that we can jump through?
Hermosilitube, and I think Hermosilitube, I recognize you from the forum as well, and thank you very much because you're the one who started this thread for USB audio devices, and we're going to talk a little bit about what some of your recommendations were there and share them with the rest of the audience.
Awesome.
Before we get to that, let's just see. Peter will answer your question a little bit. We wanted to get into the main topic, but stick around and we can answer any other questions you may have. So, without any further ado, let's take a look at how to actually implement this feature. So I've got a Webcaster running here, and I've got it on a little monitor here so we can see what we're doing. But Lisa, why don't we switch over and share the Webcaster screen? And you see here, you just go into your preferences, and right up here, you've got Use USB Audio Source Beta. So you're going to go ahead and tick that back out, and then I would recommend actually power cycling your Webcaster.
It's not a bad idea, just to make sure that we are picking up the USB device properly after enabling that feature.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do a power cycle. Watch out, Lisa, because here we go. We're going to cut out. Hey, we're just in the little window now. Okay.
And the same is true if you're doing a USB webcam. You will need to power cycle it after enabling that beta feature checkbox for it to enable.
So I've got a USB microphone right here, and this is actually the Blue Yeti, which
is an extremely popular microphone in the online streaming space. Hey guys, I'm a streamer kind of thing. This is very common. It's not top of the line, but it's not cheap bottom end either, and it's somewhere in the middle, and definitely serves as a great piece that people like to use when they're starting to get serious about streaming. Maybe someone who's moving away from just a webcam to a real camera, as we've beat to death on this show. This might be the equivalent for audio. You go from maybe using a headset, which also works, to something like this.
Yeah, this is great. And, you know, a lot of people may already have one of these. A lot of our Webcaster fans, I wouldn't be surprised, already have these. You can actually mount this as well. It's got, you know, a microphone mounting.
I've seen people put them in suspension mounts and vibration
you don't have
stuff.
You can just leave it on your desk like this. I've actually got, there's a bunch of different pickup patterns as well. So I've got a graphic here that kind of shows some of the pickup patterns. So you've got stereo, cardioid, omnidirectional. Depending on what you're doing, you can set this microphone up to do what you need.
It has a gain control on it as well built into it. So there's quite a bit you can do without breaking the bank.
I think these are hovering usually around $100 to $150 in that range. So take a look and see what you can find. So I've got it actually plugged in just using a USB cable. And I'm going into the port on the side of Webcaster next to the HDMI in, which in my testing gave me the best results. Do you have any rationale behind why we use that port? I know for the webcam you have to use that port.
Yeah, it basically is for the same reason. That's the one that the software side of Webcaster built in is looking for a UVC camera or UAC microphone device to use and integrate. So we could literally say that this is the input side of a Webcaster. The HDMI and the USB ports there are the input side. The two other USB ports on the back next to the Ethernet and everything else, those are really more output kind of ideas where you would use mouse keyboard.
Right.
So yeah, that's the general.
In my testing with this Blue Yeti, I found that when I tried to use the ports on the back of Webcaster, I got like a little intermittent, like almost like a little skip that was happening on my audio. I got much better. The side port here worked well. I also noticed, though, there was a very faint sort of hiss. But when I unplugged it and plugged it back into the USB port, that seemed to resolve that issue. So,
interesting.
Again, this is, you know, my first time testing it. I'm sure as time goes on, we may have some better results. But, I mean, it works.
It does work, yeah.
And the quality was excellent.
Yeah, and, you know, just like everything else we've talked about on the show, and when you're set up, test, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you got to verify things, make sure you're familiar with it before you attempt it. So what are some of the other ones we've tested? So actually, this is probably a good one to look at next. This is a Monoprice condenser microphone. I'm betting this is inexpensive, even though it looks high quality.
To our little close-up camera here.
Yeah, maybe
switch
we'll
back to our Webcaster.
Disappears into disappears into my shirt. It's a USB condenser mic, much like the Blue Yeti, but it doesn't have any built-in controls for it. So it works. However, we found that without gain control, it was too low. So, although it works, it might not be the best choice. And that's just something to keep in mind, is that something like the Blue Yeti is going to be a little bit more expensive, more than likely, but with built-in gain control, you have more ability to fine-tune it.
Yeah.
This, I don't even know what this is. Honestly,
That's a microphone?
It is a microphone. It is a USB microphone. I have no idea, but it works.
Cool.
It's about all I get.
Yeah,
there's like plastic things.
Sounds cheap, but
I'm sure this was $5 from eBay from China, but it works.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Why don't we share some of the forum thread and what what Arturo Salcido, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, Arturo had posted. He had found, so here's the forum thread on the Epiphan forum. So do take a look here because there's a lot of good information here. So Arturo had shared this Sabrent little USB
okay, that's interesting.
external stereo sound adapter for Windows and Mac.
Okay.
So this is $7. And it has basically just a 3.5 millimeter input and actually an output as well. And I think Arturo said that the output even worked. So he was able to monitor.
So it's essentially a USB sound card, which is great. You sometimes see those that come with headsets, so that they can both be 3.5 mil and USB. That's a great option because I tested this Logitech wireless headset earlier, and it worked. It worked very well. So using a headset like this for a mic does work, and there's just a little wireless receiver to plug in. However, it doesn't necessarily give you, headphones as well to maybe monitor your own audio to make sure. Whereas that converting any headset that's 3.5 mil gives you, again, a little more flexibility. So that's great that works.
Yeah, that's very awesome. Cool. Now, I think we should also make sure we point out that if you're choosing to use the USB audio feature, that is replacing your HDMI audio. There's no mix that's happening.
Right.
You are choosing between your HDMI audio source or your USB audio source. You have to make that decision which one you want to use, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it is one or the other. A scenario where you might want to use USB audio only, a great example of that would be the many DSLR style cameras that don't provide audio over HDMI but can give you really nice video. You might use that HDMI video, but because they don't provide HDMI audio, you're kind of stuck. Add a Blue Yeti and there you go.
Perfect. So we've got a few other things to share. I just want to say hi to people on Twitch, by the way, because we are streaming to Twitch now.
Yes.
So Hoodrich OG and GCTWI, not sure if there's...
I think I might know who those people are.
Okay. So hello to the Twitch audience. It's good to have you there. Okay, here's another USB audio device that I tested.
We're getting serious now.
This is an M-Audio M-Track, and this is basically a sound card. But what it actually gives you is some XLR inputs and quarter-inch inputs.
Yeah. So this has been kicking around the office, honestly, for years. We use this for all kinds of different things, recording voiceovers for our marketing videos, doing all kinds of different stuff. And it just so happens that, it's a USB sound card, and it works with Webcaster. So I think the real beauty of this is that if you have a very traditional microphone that needs phantom power and XLR, a box like this can do that.
Here's exactly the microphone. Like, this is a handheld mic that requires phantom power, and boom, you're set. Now you've got a pro microphone.
Right. So if you want to add the interview style of audio to things, maybe the Dest Blue Yeti style is not quite what you want. You want the handheld, then that's a fantastic
It's nice
option.
that you get, again, gain control right here on the device. Now, this I actually, in my testing, found that for some reason, one channel was giving me left ear only, and one channel was giving me right ear only. So you would have to get a Y connector for your XLR cable in this case.
I think that's probably because M Audio does these weird hybrid devices where they're UAC and they work to a degree, but you can also install custom drivers that expand the capabilities of the device. Zoom does that too with a lot of their stuff. So, you know, that's just something to keep in mind. But there are other, I couldn't find them today, but there are other XLR to USB boxes that we have played with, and they do work. So there, again, it should work with pretty much anything that's UAC, meaning it's universally plug and play. There's no drivers to install. You just plug it in and go.
So Indiana Jones on the forum had another recommendation similar to this M Audio box, and it was this right here, the Focusrite Scarlett. There's a 212 and a 214 version, but this is, you know, a relatively inexpensive way to get XLR onto USB.
Or quarter inch as well,
and,
I guess.
And he, what does he say here? He tried the Focusrite 212 and 214, and they both worked like a charm. He, again, had the mono on one side of the stereo field, so he had to figure that out a little bit, but it provided phantom power and gave him a way to get XLR microphones into his Webcaster. So there's an option for you. Again, this is, you know, something that you could use for many applications other than maybe you have something like this already, or maybe you can use this for other applications as well.
Well, something like that with when you have the XLR for a microphone and you know, maybe the quarter inch on that for an instrument, a guitar, or whatever. Imagine a setup where you're someone who's just doing your own music and you want to live stream that. You could sit there with your mic and guitar and input that with a high quality camera. You know, Scott, we know you're somewhere. You know, bring that stuff in, and you know, even the main feed from a mixer in house audio or whatever, bring that into something as simple as the Webcaster to get that feed out.
That's a perfect use case. Now, we had tried, I want to show some things that we tried that didn't work.
Yeah.
So we tried going with an H4n. I know a lot of you probably have one of these.
Yeah.
And we tried just using the USB out from the H4n into Webcaster. Didn't work.
No, it did not work. And in my research studying that, although it kind of works on a computer in UAC, it really wants to use a driver from Zoom to work properly. So unfortunately, it didn't work. That's a prime example of something that we might try to work on and in beta phase, see if there's something we can do to improve that. Obviously, Zoom, these things are incredibly popular, and it would be fantastic to use that type of device. So, you know, that's one thing to look at. We know that the Zoom cameras, which have microphones like that built into them, some of the higher end ones, those work on HDMI. So that's another possibility for those XY style mics.
Now, Arturo said that he actually is using his Zoom, but he's doing it in sort of a different way. So he's actually, I mean, many of you who are familiar with the accessories we've sort of tested with Webcaster, this is the HDMI inserter. So this is actually going to insert audio onto your HDMI source.
Yeah.
So
we've talked about this one a number of times now.
So this isn't really the USB audio path.
It's
this
another
is
option.
an HDMI audio path. But what you could do here is, so you got your camera into here, and then out of the device into your Webcaster. But then what you do is you can pair your audio. So I could take my Zoom, just use a 3.5 millimeter cable, and then into my audio inserter. And now I've got two XLR inputs with gain control.
Or the XYs built in, or whatever you're doing.
So I can put all of my, I'm basically using this like a mixer.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So that gives you a lot of powerful options as well. And I'm sure frequent viewers have seen, we've talked about that inserter a lot. It's about $45 from Monoprice. It's pretty good value for what it can offer you. Again, it still has to be paired up with something else. So if you're an existing Zoom, you know, H4n owner, it's great. But if you don't have anything to start with, then something else, you know, a la Blue Yeti or whatever, might be a more appropriate option for your budget.
Another cool option if you are going to go with the HDMI audio inserter is you know, you could have something like, I've got like my wireless Sennheiser here. So imagine I'm wearing this, and then my receiver, instead of using the XLR out of my receiver, I can just go 3.5 millimeter jack straight into my inserter. And now I've got a wireless microphone that I can use with my Webcaster.
Exactly. You get that wireless lav, be able to do things a little more remote.
Interviews, you know, moving around. There's a lot of ways. You could have your Webcaster up in the top of the auditorium and still be getting your audio all the way there. No problem, right?
Yeah.
So that's a nice option as well. So let's check in on the chat here. Let's see here. Arturo is saying he also tried the H4n Pro with the USB Sabrent. That's that little mini adapter we saw, that little USB adapter here.
Okay, so that would work as well. So
again, you could use that with your, if you didn't want to spend $50 on an audio inserter, you could spend $7 on this little Sabrent USB and use the USB audio path as well.
That's awesome. That's a really good find, because I think one of the number one questions we get about Webcaster audio is, how can I get my analog audio in there? That little thing might be one of the great finds for peanuts, really. I mean, it's like, what, $7? I mean, buy two just in case, right? I mean, it's so cheap, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, why not have a couple of them? For $7, you can't go wrong.
Exactly.
Okay, DJ Cold Crush, when using a USB audio device, does the HDMI output still provide the audio coming into the X2?
Honestly, that's something I have not tested. As far as I know, yes, but I actually haven't tested that myself. I've usually just been worried about the resulting quality coming out on the stream. So again, beta feature, so mileage may vary on that, but it ideally should, yes.
So does he mean like we just said it a few minutes ago, but you're replacing your HDMI audio when you use the USB audio feature, which we showed you how to do in the menu. You're saying, I'm not going to use my HDMI audio. I'm going to use the USB audio only.
Yeah, and the HDMI output of Webcaster is kind of a pass-through.
Oh, that's what he's asking.
Kind of a post, right? So it's not technically post in code, but it's not straight pass-through either. So it's they're, so that's something that, again, that's ongoing testing.
So DJ Cold Crush, check the forum, because we'll do a test and check the forum thread. Another question from DJ Cold Crush. He had a live stream last week and was using HDMI audio input. When previewing it on HDMI output, it sounded like it was playing 44.1 kilohertz, one note down pitched. Is this a known issue?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
The resampling to the output doesn't always work properly, depending on what the input and outputs and things like that. So yeah, that's unfortunately a known issue that we are investigating in terms of how we resample audio depending on what the inputs are.
Okay, good to know. So DJ Cold Crush, check in on the forums, and it's a good place to put your questions, because we can respond to them there, and then everybody can see it.
Yeah.
And we'll update you if we have any changes regarding the HDMI output. I'm just going to check Facebook. Not too many questions there. So I think that's pretty much it. We've covered a lot of ground today. Lots of ways to get audio into your Webcaster X2.
Yeah.
I still think one of the best ways to do it is through your camera.
Depending on your camera.
But if that's not a possibility for some reason with your setup, you can certainly attempt to use the USB beta feature, or you can go with an audio inserter. So there's always a way to figure it out. It's just depending on what works for your setup.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard from a lot of customers using the Sony Alpha cameras, which we happen to have one for our close cam here. That doesn't have a mic input on it, right? So that kind of is a great camera, nice and small, great mobile thing to use with a Webcaster, but it really limits your audio options. So you might want to add something else. A lot of DSLRs, particularly Canon and Nikons, don't send live audio over HDMI. So you probably want to pair something up, even the ones that have mic inputs. Whereas you look at something like Panasonic G7, G85, those things, they do send live audio and they do have mic inputs. So again, depending on what camera you have, but again, I think the point of today was, there are other options. There's some backups, some as little as $7.
Yeah, I really like that. Thank you so much, Arturo, for this recommendation on the Sabrent. So that's a good one to try right there for $7. There are just a couple more questions coming in that I want to get to. Arturo was saying more mobile. We have some mobile stuff coming up, so stay tuned for that. We've got some plans in the works.
Yeah.
Matt Diver, I missed the very beginning, but using an HDMI and webcam source, what happens to the audio?
It has to be one or the other. So there's an option in the preferences for use USB audio. If that's checked, it will only use audio from USB. If it's unchecked, it will only use audio from HDMI.
And we should note that if you are using a webcam that has a mic in it, you can use that mic.
You can.
Some webcams have a mic built in. However, you can't have, at least I believe, you can't have a USB microphone and a USB webcam operating at the same time.
That's not something that we currently support, test for, or I would expect to support. I don't think that's
so
really...
you're basically choosing, do you want to use a webcam or do you want to use a USB mic?
Yeah.
If you do want to use a webcam, then bring your audio in through an inserter or through your HDMI source, through your camera.
Exactly.
So that would be our recommendation there. So hopefully that answers your question, Matt. Okay, I think that's about it for today. We're still in the works on our topic for next week, so we're not going to tease it yet, but do want to let you know this is our 48th episode.
Yeah.
So 50's coming up pretty soon, and that's going to be a big one for us. We're going to be sharing some interesting mobile stream is what we're thinking, but we're not sure yet. We're still in the works.
Yeah,
we definitely want to celebrate 50 episodes.
Yeah.
The other thing is we may have some giveaways coming up related to that. So make sure to watch our show next week. And for all of the loyal audience who stuck with us through this long episode, make sure to check out next week because we may have some interesting stuff in celebration of our 50th episode coming up.
Yeah, that brainstorming episode for that, it was getting a little wild. So it's going to be interesting no matter what we end up choosing. But there's some good options.
Carol TV, quick question. Any plans to add overlay titles to Webcaster X2?
Not currently.
Not currently. I know that's been a requested feature. Right now, we don't have anything for that.
No, I mean, it's important to remember the Webcaster is designed to be there for simplicity. If you're looking for something that's going to add a lot more of those, really pro AV broadcast style things, then you're looking at more like Pearl 2 or even
our upcoming Pearl Mini.
We
can't say that too loud. It's not announced yet. We've sneak preview of a Pearl.
Exactly. So there are certain things that are always going to be limited on something like Webcaster X2. It's a small, low-powered platform. It can't do everything realistically. We're trying to put as much in there as we possibly can, but there's always going to be some limits.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, thanks everybody for being here with us today. We look forward to seeing you next week. If you have any questions, of course, you can always leave comments on the video on demand of this stream, or the best place really is to go over to the Epiphan forum, epiphan.com/forum. You can interact with one another there, share your best practices, share the equipment and your setup. It's a great place to see what other people are using with their webcasters and to sort of share some tips and recommendations. So make sure to check out the forum.
There's that thread on the audio we were showing. There's a thread on cameras that people have played with. And those are probably the common questions that we get. So there's a lot of information already in there. Really appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week. I'm George.
I'm Dan.
Have a great day.
So long, guys.